Welcome to the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrian Campbell, where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. Joining me this week for episode 4 is Dr. Nick Hagen, owner of Innate Health and Wellness. In this episode, we'll be discussing the fundamentals of chiropractic work and Dr. Hagen's unique holistic and root cause approach that focuses on the mind, body, and spirit connection as being essential to proper health. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy. All right, so here we are. We are live, and I am Dr. Adrian Campbell. I'm your host tonight for the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. Tonight, joining me is Dr. Nick Hagen, a local native to Columbia, Missouri. He graduated from Logan College of Chiropractic in 2016. He currently owns and operates Innate Health and Wellness, located in Columbia, Missouri. Dr. Hagen takes a holistic and root cause approach to getting his patients healthy. He has found that the mind, body, and spirit connection is essential to proper health. Because of this importance, he specializes in Brain-Based Chiropractic Care, Innate Nutrition and Supplementation, and Pranic Healing. With this array of services, he has seen great success with patients ranging from neck pain and headaches to premenstrual symptoms and even certain autoimmune disorders. When he is not guiding patients on their health journey, Dr. Hagen enjoys time spent outdoors, playing his guitar, and cooking up delicious and, of course, healthy meals. So welcome, Dr. Hagen. Nick, so glad to have you here.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Yay!
Yeah. Yay!
Yeah.
I know that one of the coolest things about this podcast is just hanging out with like most of my favorite people. So,
Right.
It's not a bad gig.
We know each other, and
We do.
just a continuation of that, sharing what we do.
Exactly. All right. So why don't we start with you telling us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a local native of Columbia, Missouri. Born and bred here. Grew up very active, skateboarded, played soccer, swam, tennis, baseball, basketball, ping pong, played just all the sports under the sun, was constantly active as a child. And of course, when you're that active, your body's bound to have some injuries here and there. And on top of that, I wasn't eating the best, a ton of sweets. That had been my weakness for sure, was my sweet tooth. So, I was doing a lot really hard on my body growing up, and I wasn't getting proper nutrition. And I started to experience that body breakdown pretty quickly. So, at first I went to my primary care physician, and they did MRIs on my knees and my low back. And they're like, well, you just have, tendonitis and swelling in your joints from all the sports you're playing. Like, you just, you need to brace them, ice them, rest, etc. And while that wasn't necessarily a bad protocol, it just wasn't the right one for me. And then additionally, I also saw other providers. I did have like really bad cystic acne. So I was actually placed on Accutane for about 8-9 months after trying, I would say, a dozen, if not more, of antibiotics, creams for the acne on my face and my back. It was terrible. So I dealt with those things. And at the time, if I would have gone to seeing a doctor for ADD, I probably would have been diagnosed with that. Very fortunate that I did not, though. So didn't have to take the medications for that, and continued down a path that just wasn't right for me. I definitely wholeheartedly believe in Western medicine, especially in cases of emergencies, and helping to put the fires out, so to speak, which we'll talk more about later. However, I just finally got to a point where all of these standard protocols weren't working for me. And one day, my mom went to the chiropractor with my sister and said, hey, well, why don't you get checked out too? And I was like, oh, no, I don't really want to. And mind you, I was like 11 or 12 at the time.
Okay.
And I was, somewhat resistant for whatever reason. I'm like, oh, I don't need it. I'm a tough little kid. I can handle it. I'm a strong soccer player, whatever.
Well, and when we're young, like we totally think that we can be resilient through everything and nothing's going to last forever. We don't think about the long-term impact of stuff. Yeah.
Until something finally breaks you down and you can't get back up and your ego is like flattened at the same time and you have to do something that's going to make that change. So it's often that curse, is truly a blessing. So that was my blessing. Going to the chiropractor, I got adjusted that first time when I was 11 or 12 years old. And I swear, Adrian, I was doing cartwheels out of their office. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Where has this been in my entire life? So I started going back to the chiropractor, noticing like, okay, my lower back pain is getting better. My knees are doing better. Then, over a few months, I just started noticing, okay, I've been going for a few months. My pain scales are better, but as well, my energy levels are better. My attention and focus has changed. And then we started to talk about diet. And for me, she's like, the doctor told me, hey, how's your diet? And I'm like, well, I've been drinking like maybe 4 Cokes a day and some zebra cakes. And it's like, yeah. So long story short, we had a discussion on diet. That helped with my hiatal hernia at the time. And it also helped with my acne. I cut out dairy, which within a month, 80% of the acne had gone down or stopped.
My God.
So I was so upset. I was so frustrated that I had been doing all these things. I had to get monthly blood work being on Accutane, and I had to fast. So I wasn't happy about that. Having to go to school, being an athlete, having to not eat for 2 hours was tough.
Yeah, no kidding. I know that life. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. So being super active. So, I felt that, I wasn't having to eat as much when I was eating the right things. I was feeling better. Focus was better. I'm pretty sure my grades even got better in school. I probably was less annoying to people because I wasn't, being a spaz. So it probably affected, my friends, family members, classmates in a good way as well. But within a year's time, really, I saw a huge progression. And I was only, a preteen at that time. And I just had this huge transformation of going from being in pain, being sick, and just irritated, and my mood was crap, to having that relief and experiencing life the way it should be. So moving forward.
Can I just say too, like, it sucks that you went through all that so young, for sure, but also like what a gift to find this at such a young age. Because I know, like, for me, I didn't find any of these like more holistic or, not straight Western healing modalities till I was in my 30s. And I dealt with so many years of pain and suffering. And I know so many of my friends, clients, students, etc., are the same. So like, thank goodness for your mother. But like that's really awesome that you were able to find it at such a young age. Like, that's really cool.
I know. And that, I'm glad you ultimately found it. And I'm glad we're doing this podcast so that people can, hopefully tune in and see that it's never too late, really.
Right.
The sooner, the better. It's easier to grow healthy children than to fix sick adults. That's a pretty common chiropractic quote. Dr. Steve Hoffman was the first one to tell me that, so I give him credit where credit is due. So moving forward, I not only had the physical and the mental experience, the transformation, but I also had I would say a spiritual transformation as well, because I started to become more aware of my surroundings, and I started being able to tune into other people's emotions and seeing that there's more than just me going on in the world.
Right.
So when I was like 13 or 14, I remember distinctly driving within 2 stoplights of my current office. My dad was driving in I think it was like a 2004 Chrysler minivan, just got adjusted, driving through the stoplight. And I just had this whole experience of, I saw the world from a third person view. And I was like, whoa. And I just saw where I was at in the car driving. I just had this huge zoom out experience. And I was like, wow, I am so connected to on this world. So from there, that was kind of like a wake up for me. And from there, I had a lot deeper experiences with, as I continue to get adjusted. And you'll come to find that chiropractors offer different techniques and styles. And when I got into chiropractic school at Logan University, or Logan College of Chiropractic in Chesterfield, Missouri, I was introduced to upper cervical care through Dr. Eddie Weller. He currently practices in Manchester, or off Manchester Road in St. Louis. He introduced me to upper cervical care, which is the brainstem health, because the brainstem connects to everything. It's like your gateway to your entire body. So I experienced upper cervical chiropractic, and that was a huge transformation, in addition to what I had already received from what I would consider the, conventional, traditional, for me, I would say it was sports related, getting the joints moving, what most people would consider that typical chiropractic, which is phenomenal anyways. But this upper cervical care blew my mind. And I just remember my first upper cervical adjustment, I walked out and just felt even more connected. I'm like, this is how life is supposed to be. I felt mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually just synced up as a whole. And I didn't have the words to describe it or know what was going on, but I just knew that this is how life is supposed to be. So that is kind of my initial journey with chiropractic. And as I continued my studies, I took advanced training, which we can talk about furthermore, but that's kind of the beginning of my experience and how I've transformed from going from being in pain and discomfort and, oh, my back hurts, to, oh my God, there's so much going on and wonderful things are happening in life, and just being in tune to not only yourself, but, the world, the universal pulse. So that is my initial experience going into chiropractic and how I got into chiropractic.
That's awesome. And I know that like we've had conversations about it because I study the central nervous system, right? And the vagus nerve and all that good stuff. And one of my biggest issues that led me to, what we'll say, on my healing journey was getting occipital neuralgia, which is where the muscles in my neck got so tight, they were pinching off the nerves going to my eyes. And it took them 10 months to diagnose me. And I was in, oh my God, excruciating pain. I got to the point where I was getting black spots in my vision. It was really bad. And what saved my butt was acupuncture, like completely. I won't get into the whole story, but it saved me. And it opened up my eyes to everything else that's out there, because Western medicine was shooting nerve blocks into my head and my neck, which are very painful. And acupuncture in the opposites was like so less invasive and almost calming. And it got me off all the drugs in a month. And it just completely blew my mind. Yeah. And So I know that like you and I have talked about how like that area of the neck is so sensitive and there's so many different things that go into it. And we're not going to talk about cranial sacral here, but cranial sacral is another one that I'm really interested in because all those little floating bones and this really delicate brain stem that's coming through there, right? And then you have like the vertebrae that you know way more about than I do. And it's all so sensitive and so delicate. And it connects to, I mean, I think we talk about, you know, a lot of the physical components like the central nervous system and the digestive system and blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of emotional components that's connected to as well. And when we're off balance, I'll use that term for ease. When we're off balance, the way that we somatically experience the world is different as well. Our sense of safety, our sense of comfort, all of that comes from the way that we are in our bodies, right? And so if something's just a little bit off, it can change our perception of safety in our environment, which is insane, right? But that can exacerbate PTSD symptoms. It can keep you from being able to heal significant trauma events. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So it goes even beyond, you know, the physical, which I think you shared in the example of your story of how it not just like made your body feel better, but it changed your life. Like it changed the way you were able to relate to the world around you on the big scale, but then also in your relationships, your performance in school, because all of these little parts of us are so delicate and need to be looked after. So I think, I don't know, all that stuff's just really cool.
Yeah, it's transformative. And I'm so happy to hear that literally the acupuncture opened your eyes.
Oh, completely. And I'll tell you, at the time, I was teaching electronics in a nuclear power plant. I was so left brain focused and not into like any hippy dippy non-Western stuff at all.
Right.
And the only reason I did it is because I was in so much pain. And I remember going like being in the pain clinic for like my 3rd round of nerve blocks in 6 weeks and asking, so what's the next step? And they were like, well, this is it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And they're like, yeah, you just come back every 2 weeks and get these shots. And I was like, for the rest of my life. And I think I was 31 years old. And they were like, yeah, or you get a different job or you just, you know, don't work. And I'm like, because those are options for someone to do in their life. And I went to my neurologist and threw a fit like a toddler. I mean, I was like screaming and crying and are you serious? This is all you got?
Right.
And he was like, well, I mean, you can try acupuncture, I guess. And I remember thinking, and I might have even said it out loud. I remember being like, well, you're already sticking needles in me, so I might as well try the other ones, you know? And I was totally not a believer, but I was so hurting that I was like, I don't even care. Just anyone that thinks they can help me, do what you want to do, you know? And it is incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible that you got those results. And, you know, oftentimes people are driven to what is now considered complementary alternative medicine.
Right. CAM.
Yep. Yeah. Our lovely acronym there. So most people start out experiencing that Western medical model for putting out the fire. However, once the fire has been put out, you got to rebuild that house. Mm-hmm. So you can't just keep dousing a house that doesn't have a fire with water. That's just going to make it worse. So you got to go to what's going to build your body back up, which oftentimes if you go there in the first place, when it's non-emergent, then it'll oftentimes build and strengthen your body to the point where those symptoms go away.
Yeah. We ended up calling. So like I was going twice a week for a month. And then over time, it ended up being once a week. And then every other week. And then we got on what we called my maintenance schedule. Yep. And it's one of those things where it's not really any different than feeding yourself good food or like, and I, you know, because I've done so much athletic stuff, I used to get massages every 2 weeks and it wasn't to relax. it was literally taking care of my body because I did so much with it. It's just like if you have a sports car, you're not going to put sugar in the gas tank and never change the tires and just run it till it breaks down. You take care of it and it'll perform the way that you treat it. Same thing with the body, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to keep your tires aired up. You're staying in alignment. And another way I see it is, we have to breathe in just as much as we breathe out, and going to work, taking care of the kids, going to school, being an adulting, That's why people have shirts like "not adulting today." It's like, that's your breathing in day. You've got to have your self-care. Like, breathe out, you got to breathe in. You got to, get the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual recovery as needed. So, anyways, go ahead.
So tell me more about the additional trainings, because I know you got the standard awesome chiropractic. You mentioned the additional training with the brain stem, upper cervical work, which is fantastic, but you're also a pranic healer and you do a few other things. So tell us more about that, because I think that's kind of what makes your practice unique, especially for me and in the conversations we've had.
Okay, absolutely. Would love to. I definitely do want to take a step back and touch on like the chiropractic credentials, in that a lot of people are concerned that chiropractors don't get, enough education or aren't considered real doctors. And that's okay. If people believe that, that's just their belief. The current education for a chiropractor is to receive, a 4-year degree, undergrad. Prior, most of the chiropractors receive a degree in kinesiology, biochemistry, pre-med. And from there, they go into chiropractic school, which is typically a 3 1/3 year program. Can be done in 5, but 3 1/3 is the accelerated program. And it's all in all, the program includes, I would say, the same amount as medical school, with the hours starting out with anatomy, physiology, neurology, pathology, your basic advanced sciences, but then the medical doctors go off and learn more pharmacology, more on surgery, obstetrics, etc. And then chiropractors go off to learn more of, biomechanics, nutrition, what's going to build the body up, and more case management through holistic measures. So, and adjusting, of course. So really the education is the same. And some graphs, say that chiropractors actually have more hours completed. But, that's, people can maybe skew it however they want. I would just say that it's relatively the same level of degrees there. And of course, we end up both going to do our residencies or externships, whether it's in a clinic at the school and then a preceptorship, or even, VA hospitals offer chiropractors, services there as well. So it's starting to become more popular in integrated facilities as such. But moving forward, now that that's out of the way, yes, I've learned advanced chiropractic techniques. There's a ton of techniques that really focus on the bones and the muscles and the positioning. And while that is incredibly important, what, Adrian, you could probably answer this. What controls the muscle? What tells the muscle what to do?
The brain and central nervous system?
Hold on.
Like, you're putting me on the spot. Don't make me look dumb, Nick.
Sorry. No. I'll give you multiple choice next time.
It's okay. I got it right. We're good.
Sorry. You did great. You did fantastic. I put you on the spot. I won't do that. But yeah, the nerves tell the muscles to contract or relax, and ultimately that, will shift the bones and the joints in the proper positioning. So I find that a lot of the chiropractic techniques have been focused on telling the bones and muscles how to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's fine and dandy, and they will still get great results. I'm more concerned in working with the nerves first and foremost, and then the muscles, and then the joints and bones. And the reason I do that is, well, philosophically, it makes sense, or principally, it makes sense. Scientifically, it makes sense. But the results I've seen is really what made me make that leap.
Well, and I'll tell you, so my acupuncturist, her name's Mia Chow. She owns Pacific Acupuncture out in Dana Point, California. We're very good friends now because, she saved my life and, we just became best friends. But that was one of the things that we would talk about is how she often partnered with chiropractors because they would adjust the muscles and the bones, but the nerves needed to be told what to do. So people would come to her after their adjustments when everything was in place, and then she would reset the nerves using acupuncture so that they worked in tandem. So it's really cool that you are able to focus on both of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, great point. And we'll talk about pranic healing here in a second, and how that integrates with all of this too, similar to acupuncture. So yes, focusing on the nerves, and specifically what I'm talking about when I'm focusing on the nerves is, one, I'm focusing on the tone or the tension in the spinal cord. I'm looking at the dura mater, which is basically a layer of the spinal cord that protects it. And so the nervous system works in conjunction, or the spinal cord works in conjunction with the brainstem in the upper neck and the brain itself to relay all the proper messages. And what happens is we are subject to forces of nature, 24/7, 365 days, 360 degrees, X, Y, Z planes. So as long as we have our physical body, we will always be going under forces, stressors. And some of those stressors are, positive and motivational. And then others are considered distress. And really, when our body can no longer adapt to those stressors is when we experience distress. And so that can look like, poor posture, being stuck in a chair all day. That can be a car accident, which is more sudden. That can be eating improper foods over time. Like, oh, sure, I'm going to eat this tub of ice cream today. Maybe I'll have a mild upset stomach, but it's not going to hurt me too bad down the road. But ultimately that adds up when you do that. Right. In addition to sitting poorly, not exercising, not getting enough sunlight, not breathing, taking proper diaphragmatic abdominal breaths. There's a lot of stressors that add up. And then additionally, I would say this is the biggest one, mental emotional stress. And a lot of that comes from, our social life, our work, and financial stress is another one too. And technology, that's causing additional radiation to our system. So yes, we are subject to a lot of stressors, a lot more than we used to be back in even 50 years ago. So that's something we really need to consider, is the amount of stress that we are under. And so we really need to take care of ourselves. But going forward, most people get into the state of distress. And what happens is their body can no longer adapt to that stress. And it stores that stress throughout the body to try and compensate for that. And really, we won't go there just yet. We'll talk about that with pranic healing. Just the multidimensional layers of reality and our energetic anatomy as well. But for chiropractic purposes, what I do specifically is I scan for the areas in the nervous system where there is improper tone, where there's tension in the spinal cord, and improper signaling out from the spinal nerves going out to each organ, gland, tissue, muscle, joint. And again, each organ has its own component for emotional ties. As you know, you probably learned with acupuncture. So yes, we are multidimensional beings. We have emotions stored in our organs, different areas of the body. So that's why a lot of people will have lower back pain, financial problem, or I'm worried, so I'm tensing up here. So really, we're getting to the root cause of this by freeing up the nervous system, freeing up those highways, the spinal canal, and the nerves going out, branching to the different areas of the body, so that the brain can process all of this and subsequently relay the important messages back and forth throughout the body. And so, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the machine that you have?
Yes, I was just going to get to that. You read my mind. Okay.
Woo-hoo!
So, I use this scanner. It's NASA certified, and it's called the Inside Subluxation Station by CLA Technologies. And this is the neurothermal scanner. And so what it looks like, or what it looks for, is neuroinflammation. So they've done studies and actually been able to find that inflammation comes out from the spinal canal into the nerves branching out. And so it's not reading the inflammation of the muscles or the joints, but specifically of the nervous system. And that's something that's very unique compared to other tests and scans. So it's a very dynamic test. So where X-ray, MRI, those are very static tests, and you can see, oh my gosh, like you got a bulging disc. But looking at a bulging disc, a lot of times people, if we take the X-ray, we might find multiple bulging discs, and they don't have pain in half of those areas. So when we look at, the scanner, we just roll up the entire spine, and we can objectively determine where that's coming from and why. So it's good to, depending upon each case, clinically combine the static and the dynamic, readings. But this is something that I use with every patient, and I refer out for X-ray, MR if the case is necessary. But it's really neat because we can see, we have inflammation in these parts of the body, and we know we can help you. If there's, yes, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, we did a scan on me, and that was the first time I had one like that. And it was really simple, really easy. And then like you had a visual that showed the different areas that it went to and like how things were reacting based on the nervous system and the inflammation. And there were quite a few that were areas that I was aware of. And so it was really cool to be able to see the connections like that.
Would you be so humble as for me to pull up your scan?
Oh gosh. Yes, that's cool.
I'll pull up. Let's see if mine is in here. Okay,
I'm thinking, oh my God, what was on that scan? No, but yeah, it's fine. If it's easy, that it's fine.
I've got my own scan on here. This was in November. So if you can see, it shows you exactly where you have the tension or the neuroinflammation, which, I do get adjusted regularly. So fortunately, I only had one area signifying that I needed to be adjusted, which happened to be my upper neck, my brainstem. I was out of alignment there.
You should show mine. Okay.
Because
mine is like so much more colorful.
Okay. So yeah.
While you pull it up, I'll just tell them. So when I went in to see Nick, I've had my 60% of the meniscus removed in my left knee like a little over a year ago. And I've been going through physical therapy, but my hips have been out of alignment. My right knee was taking on so much more of the impact. So my lower back was kind of messed up. My shoulders, I just moved halfway across the country. I had so much stress going on. And so it was really like, I love reports and information. And like I said, so it was really cool to like be able to see the visual after the scan and so many areas that I was like, oh my God, yeah, like I know it's right there.
Well, that's interesting. Your scan is not pulling up for some reason. I think what I did was I did the initial scan where it doesn't say it, but I emailed it to you. So
Oh, okay.
apologies for that, but I will find somebody real quick. If we can find a before and after. I should have just had this pulled up way before.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, we didn't know we were
But,
getting all show and telly, and I'm the
you
one that's
know,
like, oh, he has such cool pictures. You should show us all.
colors are fun. Okay. Oh, I've got one. Okay. So this gentleman came in and he could barely even walk into my office. We had to help him onto the table, and I saw him, for a couple, 2 to 3 times a week for a couple weeks. And I think we got him, walking, I would say 80% better within those few weeks. Nice. And then we really solidified his condition within, I believe, just 2 months. So there's no information on here of his information, so we don't have to worry about HIPAA. But as you can see, there's definitely some more color going on there. It's a little bit more like the rainbow. So some more severity. So that's his before. And then 2 months later, or really a month and a half later, here is his scan right there.
Ooh, beautiful.
So that is an example. If people come in to see me and we find a lot of the color going on, we can definitely make it happen where, yes, we get rid of the neuroinflammation in the spine, restore the proper brain functioning, because a back problem is a brain problem. And, usually within 2 to 3 weeks of coming in, I find that the vast majority of my patients get 80+% relief for what they first came in for. And usually they tell me, oh, and I'm sleeping better. My, energy levels are better. My appetite's been better. They'll just start telling me all these other things. Oh, yeah, I used to have this twitch in my eye that went away, or my knee was bothering you and I didn't tell you, and it feels great. Just additional things will come out from the benefits of getting adjusted, getting in alignment, getting the brain healthy. Right. So imagine that.
Reducing inflammation in the body. Who knew? It's
right.
Crazy. Yeah.
So that's with every person who comes in, we sit down, we have a consultation, we go over their goals, whether they're in pain, wanting to get out of pain. Most people come in that condition, but then some people come in just wanting to know what's going on and with their body, getting a checkup, sort of like, getting your teeth checked or getting your annual physical. I think it's important for people to get their spines checked as well, because it all plays a role in their overall health. So to paint a picture, we sit down, we go over their goals, we put things in perspective of what they want to achieve, and then we move forward with that exam, and we do the scan. I also, will do my physical chiropractic exam, looking at the joint play, how the joints are moving, if there's inflammation in other joints. I look at the extremities. I literally look at head to toe. Last patient I adjusted his ankle. So, and I adjusted wrists earlier today. So, and shoulders. So really it's all connected. It's important. So we evaluate the full body, the joints. In addition, I'm starting to offer something called nutrition response testing. And so we actually use the nervous system to determine if the organs have weaknesses in them. And discussing with their history, we often find that either a patient needs to detox their liver, their gut, rebuild their gut, rebuild the adrenal glands, their energy centers, or, I've seen a lot of people come in and they've still been suffering from long COVID and, loss of sense of smell and taste. So I've been seeing good results with that as well, but really just not just looking at the nervous system, but look on a spinal level, but on a visceral, organic level, and really going that extra mile. So if you've ever heard of applied kinesiology, where there's muscle testing involved, I use that as well. I use biofeedback mechanisms for my adjusting and the nutrition response testing. And that helps me determine if there's anything more serious going on under the surface.
That's awesome. So I know like gut biome issues and awareness has become huge in the last, like, I'd say 5 or 6 years. It's almost like, it feels like everybody knows what probiotics are now, right? Which is not like a thing that used to be. Kombucha is just a thing you get at the store now. And so the supplements that you have and provide, they, based off your testing and stuff like that, address gut biome issues as well as organ health. Yes?
Absolutely. So once we determine which organs or parts of the body are weak and needing support, then what I do is I bring in my supplements, and I have even a testing kit, and I'm purchasing even more testing kits to really fine tune what supplements people need and don't need. And so I will actually, through the biofeedback, the nutrition response testing, determine which supplement they need and the ones they don't need as well. And for the ones they do need, I really try and narrow it down to 1 to 3 supplements, because I've had people bring in, I'm not kidding you, 30 supplements. And I've tested them. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you tested strong for, 3, 4.
Right.
I mean, you can take more. It won't, these tested okay, but it's not going to properly, or it's not going to strengthen the system. It's just going to be, for beauty. And that's great. I've found that, like, evening primrose oil, for example, it's like I had one gal, she didn't test weak for it, but it wasn't exactly strong. It was sort of in between. And it's like, well, that's something you can continue to supplement for, your skin, your beauty. And that's great. But in terms of your foundational health for your organs, that's what I'm more concerned about. And that's what I really recommend. Okay, we need to focus on these 2 to 3 supplements.
Well, I think that's really great too, because I think a lot of people end up on tons of supplements because they feel the need for something. So they start taking it, but however they got that information that they needed it may not be something they can check back in with easily. So they just start taking this supplement, then they're taking this one on top of it, and then this one too. And when I need this for this and this for this.
Exactly.
But you don't really need them forever necessarily. So I think like the testing that you're offering is really cool because it lets you know like progress and when it's time to either change to something different or reduce or add or whatever. So we might need to do that when I get back to Missouri.
Yeah, let's do that. That'll be great.
Awesome.
So, that's the nutrition response testing. And usually the way I've been offering my services is, first we start out with the chiropractic, because really we want to get the nervous system in alignment and clear first of, getting it in balance, so that when we do look to supplement the body with any, exercises or supplements or changes in the lifestyle at all, the body can handle it better. So it's kind of hard to, if you want to send a big shipment of, let's say, cars, let's say you're a Mercedes-Benz dealership and you want to send cars to Atlanta and you're in New York. Well, if the highway's already full, it's going to be hard to send more of those cars. But if, they finish up the construction, then the freeway's open, then they can send more of the shipments down and deliver more cars to the Atlanta dealership. So that's the same thing with chiropractic or, orthodontistry. Am I saying that right? Gosh.
Yeah, I think for like braces and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
For orthodontics.
Yeah.
I swear I'm a doctor, orthodontistry. That just sounded funny.
You're not a dentist. You're cool.
Yeah. So for orthodontics, you can't put on your retainer when you have your braces on. So it's the same principle.
Right.
So that's usually how I've been doing it. However, I know some people just want the nutrition response testing, and everyone's at their own place with their health journey. And some people are seeing other chiropractors, which is phenomenal. Keep doing that. And if they just want the nutrition response testing, that's great too. So I'm just going to be adding that as its own service, per case-to-case basis. So that's the nutrition part. Touching back on the chiropractic, going over the consult, the exam, once we determine what is actually going on with the nervous system, I create a plan based on, the condition. Is it mild, moderate, severe?
Mm-hmm.
Is it chronic? Is it subacute? Is it acute? I think it was the World Health Organization just deemed chronic conditions as anything beyond a month having a condition. So, and in the chiropractic world, they found that if you're out of alignment, if you have spinal misalignments in the spine more than 2 weeks, they found that spinal degeneration starts to form right after that. So that's why I recommend continued checkups after the initial corrective care, because just to make sure that everything is staying in proper alignment so it doesn't cause issues down the line. Maintenance. But we're either growing or we're dying. There isn't exactly this flat. I don't want people to flat line and just stay maintaining where they're at. I want them to keep going. I want them to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And it's a journey. And wherever people are on their journey, I'm here for them. So,
in psychology, I remember one of my professors talking about how the body is the vessel that supports the soul and the psyche, right? Mm-hmm. And so by maintaining and taking care of our body, we're able to grow emotionally, psychologically. I mean, our relationships are going to bloom, all of that. And it really does start with the body, because if the body is not well maintained, if it's not taken care of, then we can't grow in all those other areas.
You're 100% correct. And I'm really excited about everything we're talking about, and I can't wait to talk more on that here in just a second. But yeah, you got to start with the body.
Yeah.
And so, again, I determine what kind of case we're looking at whenever the patient comes in, if they need more intensive or, if they need, less care. What I've found is most people coming in need to come in once or twice a week for the first 2 to 3 weeks. And then we can start tapering down to once a week or every other week. And, most conditions, I would say 90% of the conditions can become stabilized within 3 months. Okay. There are the occasional, hot disc, lower back, certain things that really show up. And it's like, no, it's really going to take closer to 6 months to really get this stabilized based on how long this has been, how, abusive you've been to your body. So the vast majority of patients I see recover within that 3-month span.
So what are some of the things that people come into you with? Like, what are the conditions that get treated?
Great question. Most people come in with neck and back pain. Most people would associate a chiropractor with neck and back pain relief, which we do great at that. I find most people do great with that as well here. However, I've seen quite a few different things. Fibromyalgia, digestive issues, IBS, Crohn's. I've even seen people with depression. Let's see. Post-surgical conditions is a big one too, because people will often have a surgery. Let's say they'll have a hip surgery or a knee surgery, and it's like, okay, they had relief during the time, but that didn't exactly correct what was causing it, which was that nerve communication, which kept that stressed nerve going from the brain down to the knee, had never truly healed. So the knee was still protecting itself. And so it never was able to release and fully heal. So I see a lot of great results with post-surgical conditions, and also preventing people from having surgeries. But my God, there have been some great advancements with orthopedics in the last 10 years. So I've also seen that it's been a lot more successful throughout the years with surgeries. But typically, I find that people can avoid surgery unless absolutely necessary. I do see a lot of athletes, people who have sports injuries, sprained ankles, sprained wrists. I have a baker, a couple bakers actually, who I work on their wrists, elbows, and shoulders, massage therapists. Chiropractors need care too, so I do trade. My sister is a chiropractor, Dr. Elizabeth Hagen, Kling & Smith in Kansas City, Missouri. So I tend to trade with her whenever we see each other. But yeah, I do see patients with immunity issues, and I'm starting to see that more with the nutrition response testing, helping people with strengthening their immune system so that if they come in contact with other people, they're not freaking out. They're like, oh no, I'm good. Like I know that my body's strong.
Right.
I took these supplements, my body's strong. So my immune system is stronger as well. And so the chances of getting sick is less often. And if it happens, the body's still going to respond. That's a good sign, actually. Like getting sick isn't a bad sign. It's more just your body's expressing health. So it's usually less severe when that happens.
Okay. 2 questions. One, what about like sinus issues and stuff?
Oh my God. How did I not even hit that one? So we live in Columbia, Missouri, the Midwest, where there's a ton of allergens, pollens, etc., ragweed. We all know that time. If you know, you know. So I grew up with that, and cutting out dairy really helped. In alcohol, heavy meats, fatty meats. Definitely, there's certain foods that we can always talk about in the office that can be tailored to you to help reduce, provoking those that allergic reaction, that histamine reaction, but also the adjusting, clearing out those nerves going to the sinuses. I find huge relief with patients and correction. So that, allergies, but also with colds and sinus infections. I used to have my once or twice a year sinus infection where I would just call up and get my Z-Pack and try and knock it out. But I have not needed that for over a decade now, because with adjusting, it's helped tremendously. And so I am so happy I can offer that for patients. They, if they're starting to experience congestion, or even, patients, it's funny, patients will call in, doc, I'm not feeling so good today. I think I better not come in, get you sick. Well, let's not forget this is a doctor's office.
Right.
And it's best to get you in as quick as possible so that we can clear the nerves of the stress you're undergoing, because that's what's really causing your immunity to be lowered, is that neurological stress. And once we can boost that up, we can even work on the sinuses and clear those airways. I have specific techniques for that. I have an instrument that's very gentle and safe. So people find great relief. I've helped people with pneumonia, fevers, flus, COVID. So really,
see, I knew. So we're getting close on time.
Yep.
If you can believe it, right? So I'm going to have you back on at a later date to talk about pranic healing. And then, I mean, the other thing I really wanted to touch on, which we just didn't get time for, was talking about trauma and clearing trauma in the nervous system through chiropractic,
Yes.
right? Because I mean, we've had many conversations about that. And I think it's so important. Even like when you were talking about surgery, I was thinking about like all the trauma that we go through during surgery that gets housed in the body, right? And so after surgery, being able to clear that through the nervous system. So we're going to have you back to talk about all of that delicious stuff. I know. But the one other thing I did want to just make sure we talk about too, before you go, is age range for chiropractic work. I know you had your first adjustment early, but I know they adjust babies. And then just talking about like the safety when it comes into it, because I know some people get nervous. And I've worked with a lot of chiropractors, and I've had a few adjustments that were a little too rough, to be honest. And like, kind of like, they just jarred me. And one of the things I really love about the way you practice is how gentle your adjustments are. But so just a little bit about your age range and then like the safety of chiropractic work.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So childbirth is just as much force to the baby's body as getting into a car accident. And so I know.
Yeah.
And, so they'll be okay as long as they come see me. No, get adjusted by the chiropractor. So I do recommend that all newborns do see a chiropractor as soon as you can get the baby to the chiropractor. Preferably within the first day or two, because they found with studies that 98% of newborns, if not more, had spinal misalignments in the upper neck region, which, as we now know, is the brainstem region. And so where the head goes, the body follows. And so here what happens is a lot of people grow up with kinks in their neck, and their body is compensating structurally, posturally, but also biologically, chemically. And it's like straight out of the gate, we already have that stressor on us. So why not bring that back up to 100%, to a hundo, and let that baby grow and be happy and healthy? The safety of it, with children, there are advanced techniques that I specialize in that doesn't require the turning, twisting, or popping. And with infants, the joints haven't even really formed. The bones are more cartilaginous at that point. So really, it's no more force than you would put on your eyelid. Like really, that's how much force I'm using with infants, and using very specific, torque and lines of drive. That's chiropractic terms. Using very specific hand motions is really light, very gentle, and the baby often does the unwinding and adjusting itself. So it's very, very, very gentle. And I know so that's more on the infant side, and it's just really important, because why not, get your baby off on the right start. The second thing is the safety overall of chiropractic. They've done studies that there's a certain association that has tried to put chiropractic under fire and snuff us out. There have been many lawsuits and legalities handled over this in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and a lot of propaganda put out that chiropractic causes strokes. Most of those studies were performed of barbers performing those manipulations in the neck, and unqualified practitioners to perform manipulations in the neck. And so really those studies didn't even include chiropractic. And it's not causative, meaning there's no relation that chiropractic causes strokes. The chance of having a stroke compared to taking an aspirin a day, it's like 1 in, oh gosh, I don't know. It's 25 times more likely that you'll have a stroke taking 1 aspirin a day than seeing a chiropractor on a regular basis, or taking NSAIDs, ibuprofen, or it's like 100 million times more. Don't count me on that. Just look it up. The stats
Right.
as you go up the line to receive different surgery, spinal surgery, things like that are so much more risky. And if you look at chiropractic malpractice, it's nothing compared to the standard medical malpractice. So really, it's very, very safe. I do offer specific techniques that doesn't require cracking or popping. I can use my hands to be very gentle. I do have an instrument called the integrator. I practice what's called MC squared chiropractic, if you want to look that up. That includes the brainstem adjusting and also the full spine extremity adjusting with the neurofeedback adjusting. It's very fine-tuned. It's not going wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, rack them, crack them, pop, So
and
it's very specific.
Yeah. And I think too, I'm pretty empowered in my own well-being and health. So when we sat down, I was really clear in the, I don't like the cracking and popping. And you were like, no problem. I'm like,
yep.
I got so many other things we can do. And I really appreciated that. So, as a patient, I would just tell anyone listening or watching, when you go into a chiropractor, and if it's especially Dr. Nick Hagen, just give them a heads up. If you have any fears or if you're worried about anything, feel free to ask questions and talk about that stuff ahead of time. Yeah. Don't feel like, you have to do whatever they say. You should never feel like that in a medical setting or wellness setting. But anyway, but yeah. Okay. Well, Nick, we're just about at time. So we're at time. So I just wanted to say, I know that there was something you were going to offer for anyone listening or watching, yes. And it's free exam, right?
Yes. So for anyone who is listening to the podcast tonight or hears it, pre-recorded, thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Adrian, for having me on. And so, yes, I would love to offer anyone a complimentary consult. And normally this scan and, the examination experience and the recommendations, that's usually $59, which I still think is a great steal because you're getting your health out of the deal. But I'll be happy to waive this initial scan just so you can see what's going on with your body, how it's functioning, and we can have a conversation. And, if I'm not the solution for you, I'm happy to refer you to an acupuncturist, energy healer, functional medicine doctor, medical doctor, surgeon. I do have a wonderful network that I would be happy to, co-refer with, co-manage. So if I'm not the solution, I'm happy to offer, whatever's going to be right for the person. That's what it's really about. I'm just passionate about helping people in healthcare. So please, if this interests you in the least, just give me a call. We can set up a consult and, perform the scan so you can see what's going on with your nervous system and body.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Dr. Nick Hagen, I'll have all his links and information posted with the video and on Spotify. Like I said, we'll have you back again to talk about pranic healing and trauma in the nervous system and all that fun stuff. I've so appreciated our time together. And if there was one thing that you wanted to share before we sign off, what would that be?
Yes. Oftentimes it's what we're unaware of that ends up biting us in the butt. And the quote I'd like to present is, the absence of symptoms does not equal the presence of health. And so you may feel great and fine, but that's why you should still go and get your checkups, to your providers. And so definitely consider, the chiropractic as a part of that, because who knows, maybe you'll feel even better.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again, Nick. I appreciate your time. And thank you so much, everyone that tuned in. And I hope everyone has a great week. Take care. Thank you again for joining us tonight on the Energetic Psyche. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Adrian Campbell's offerings, visit her website at www.energeticpsyche.com. And to learn more about Dr. Nick Hagen's offerings, you can visit his website, www.innatehealthandwellness.com. Thank you and have a great week.